Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see all of your cheery faces out there. Welcome to today's teaching. I'm looking here at the list. I said good morning, but given some of the signups, I should say good afternoon, good evening, and good like really, really early in the morning. In fact, it's already tomorrow. Some people from Australia, but I'm not sure they're on. But anyway, welcome. It's really nice to see so many faces here. I want you to know that this topic, deepening our connection to guidance, is being recorded. But the only face and voice that shows up in the recording is mine. So your faces are completely hidden. After the teaching, there'll be time for questions and comments. And during that time, that is not included in the recording. So by way of introduction, more specifically, the topic is the role and nature of guidance on a spiritual path, both inner and outer. It's a big topic, guidance. And why are we looking into it? Well, given the size of the number of people signed up, I can only assume because it's relevant in our times today. It's always been relevant when people seek real answers to big questions. Those questions being, why am I here and where am I going? And more simply is, and what in the heck is going on? It's really easy to get lost in the many external voices, external teachings, conflicting interests, varying and widely diverse points of view. So that's why we're going to talk about guidance today. And before I start the talk, we're going to do a very brief meditation. For those of you who have a practice, please do it. For those who don't, just use the next few minutes to just contemplate where you are right now. And I will end that meditation with a short ringing of the bell. Okay, so we'll begin. Okay. So meditation is one of the practices we employ in the diamond approach. And that was a 5-minute meditation, just to give you a sense of the timing. Okay, back to guidance. There's two main forms of guidance. There's inner guidance and there's outer guidance. And today we'll explore what the diamond approach says about guidance, how it's different from other traditions, and how you can begin to connect with your own inner guidance. So first we'll take a look at the role of outer guidance, both in traditional cultural paths and religious paths. So outer guidance can be understood as coming from conventional outside sources, beginning with parents and including siblings and family members. You know, in a really sweet way, beginning in early childhood, guidance starts like this: holding on to your parent's hand, going to the grocery store, going to the park, going across the hall or 2 floors down to your mother's friend or your father's friend. That's how it starts, in a very sweet way. And it's what takes us into the world. So later on, as a child or young adult, guidance can show up when someone like a teacher or a coach or a mentor, someone who's in a position to notice a natural potential that you might have. For example, creative. Maybe you have an artistic skill or a musical rhythmic skill or a proclivity for athletics. Or maybe you're one of those people who always knows where their body is in space, never been lost in their life, totally know where they are all the time, always know which way north is. These are the people who manage to get on open boats with small crews and sail for months across the ocean without getting lost. Yeah, it's a special skill. It's long before Google Maps. So, a skill where you're deeply in touch with yourself, like a poet. You know, poets manage to put words in order and in a way that really allows you to see something about yourself. So poets, very good insight. Or people who are very skilled in contacting directly one-on-one. You know, in my years in business, there were salespeople I wanted to see. I liked them. They had really great interpersonal skill. Or some of the traditional ones like mathematical skill. So these are all just to name a few. And the point is that people such as teachers are in a position to recognize that and to provide guidance. And this is all in a traditional cultural path. So we can see that it makes sense, especially in the beginning of any path, be it cultural or spiritual. And it's self-evident that some form of outer guidance is there. So an initial question here for all of you, a deeper question is, was there a guiding influence of some form there for you when you were growing up? Someone who noticed and could support you and guide you to find your way. And as a result, you came to know yourself more. Maybe it had a small influence, little influence, or a very large influence. But for all of us, there was some form of guiding influence, either how great or how insufficient it was. I want to give a real simple example. of how we get to know ourselves and how guidance helps us, how we gain a sense of inner confidence, a sense of, I got this. That's what the kids would say. There's even an emoji, I think. The I got it, I got this emoji. Anyway, an early form of somebody guiding you might be riding a bike, learning to ride a bike. So when I say that, do you recall? And if it wasn't learning how to ride a bike, maybe it was something else. Maybe it was learning how to dance because your father or mother or some guiding influence in your family put you on top of their feet and showed you how to move. And then they took you off the top of their feet and they see if you could move, and then they put you back on. So you didn't really think about it. You had to feel into it. So with a bike, do you remember what it was like when you got up on the bike? And whoever was guiding you said, you're up. Were you surprised? Were you amazed? Were you like, oh my, what a feeling, I've got this. Really? So I'm recalling one of my granddaughters, I got to teach how to ride a bike. And after that first experience, she was declarative to any person within earshot, loudly, across the street, down the sidewalk, whoever was out there. I learned to ride my bike. So maybe it was the bike, maybe it was the dance moves, maybe it was your first 3 musical chords somebody taught you. Guitar, fretted instrument, it's wonderful. And you sort of learn 3 chords and you're able to switch them around. Then you learn to strum. Then you learn to sing. And you know what they say about country music, 3 chords and the truth. You're on your way to a musical career. But somewhere you started, somebody showed you, some form of interest showed up. Maybe it showed up by learning to swim or actually enjoying algebra. I know it's not for everyone, but. Or a modern day example is using the Google Maps app. Maybe you have children or grandchildren and you turn the phone over with the Google map on it and you let them, your kids or your grandkids or your niece or nephew, you let them tell you which turn to make. It's 3 lights up and you're going to need to be in the left lane and make a left turn. So that's the way outer guidance can work. You learn it from someone, you can also help someone. So the importance of all these sort of forms of guidance that I'm talking about is they're ordinary and they're prevalent. And it also points to how we continuously over time develop our own package of experience, the things that are part of us. And it's with this package that we make our way into the conventional world. And we're always developing that package. You know, for example, if you've ever worked in a group of people, maybe in a corporate environment or on a team, you notice that you learn a lot of things more quickly when you're around people that are doing things that are similar, that you're able to leapfrog. It's sort of a form of crowdsourcing. So your package of experience is developing. And this is conventional guidance in the conventional world. So switching to spiritual guidance. The main reason that I think you probably signed up for this is, what about the role, really the central role, that outer teachers play in most spiritual traditions? So in Buddhism and Hinduism, it's live teachers. So in Buddhism, it's the Lama, and in Hinduism, it's the Guru. And they take the role as the essential guides to our understanding and our deepening for thousands of years. It's been like this. There must be something there. So in Christianity, we follow the teachings of Jesus as a departed teacher. So it's different than the living teachers of Buddhism and Hinduism, but the teachings of a departed teacher. I will point out that there is a Christian tradition, the Eastern Orthodoxy of Christianity. There's a strong emphasis on spiritual fathers and following a spiritual father. So it's similar to that of the Buddhist Lama and the Hindu Guru. So one of the founders of Eastern Orthodoxy Christianity said, find someone who has perfected himself in the practice of prayer of the heart and attach yourself to him as if to Christ himself. So there's an element of Christianity that very much goes to following the live teacher. So there are some risks and limitations, as always, particularly with live teachers. What happens when the teacher's over-idealized, or when the students become too dependent? The danger being that you give away your own authority, you give away your agency. And in the process, how do you learn to trust your own inner guidance? So that's the deeper topic today. Our own inner guidance. And specifically, the view of the diamond approach. So the diamond approach values its teachers, but not as authorities to be blindly followed. Diamond approach teachers are there to mirror, support, and guide. But their main role is to help the students connect to their own true inner guidance using the practice of inquiry and other techniques, both of which I'll discuss in just a minute. So teachers, diamond approach teachers, do not claim special status. The goal in the diamond approach is to awaken diamond guidance, which is the inner essential structure of true nature that reveals truth in each moment. So diamond guidance is the living intelligence of being itself within us, discerning what is true, discerning what is relevant, and what leads to freedom. So diamond guidance does not mean guidance in the sense of spirit guides or counselors. In our work, it is not a guidance of telling us how to invest our money, what kind of person to marry, what would be an auspicious marriage date. And these forms of guidance have their own place and are used everywhere. But diamond guidance is not like this. It's not an entity. It's not a spirit or a guru. It is not a somebody else. So diamond guidance is the inner teacher that each of us must ultimately learn to recognize and follow. So, why does finding this inner guidance matter? Well, certainly you're not dependent on anyone else to find your way if that guidance is present. And diamond guidance is not an intellectual, conceptual understanding developed from various outside sources. Diamond guidance is direct contact with truth. Rather than getting teachings from a secondhand source, what we do with the practice of inquiry is we have direct insight and understanding that's appropriate for your moment, for your life, and for your soul. And there's more freedom from projections. Projections meaning that we transfer onto someone else the authority rather than listening to our own inner authority. So it reduces the tendency to project authority or omniscience onto others. We're able to learn to navigate the path of realization ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean we're out there totally independently all the time. We learn to navigate the path of realization ourselves with support, but without dependency. So that allows us to align with our own true nature rather than someone else's idea of what we should be. So how do we develop our connection to inner guidance? Well, it starts with outer support. It starts with teachers like myself, groups similar to the folks that are here today. And it starts with teachings like the one I'm giving right now on the difference between inner and outer guidance and the place they play in our lives. So the form of inner guidance and support helps us to begin the practice. And gradually through inquiry, presence, and love of the truth, diamond guidance begins to awaken in us. Little by little, gradually. And that guidance helps us work through obstacles, such as fear of trusting ourselves, the doubt, the second guessing, wondering, not knowing, changing directions. If we learn to trust ourselves, we come to know ourselves more. And the barriers to trusting ourselves start to move more into the background. They start to fade away. We can shed them, or they can recede, or simply melt away. Sometimes it comes bright and clear, but at other times it happens slowly over time. It can be as simple as, oh my gosh, I used to not want to do this, or I was afraid of that, or I would always second guess it. And it's been 6 months and none of that's happened. So it can happen gently, easily. So another set of obstacles that we work through is early childhood distortions that got internalized by us from those around us, like our parental figures, our mentors, our family members, our coaches, our religious leaders, friends, neighbors, people that we admire. They can also have distortions, and we pick those up. And a really deep and powerful obstacle is the inner critic something that's technically known as the superego. This is the critical inner voice. This definitely has seeds of doubt in it. Sure you're right? Sure you don't want to do this? Don't you need to know more stuff? Oh no, you can't do that. No, your so-and-so person says, yeah, you can't do that. No. It's the inner bully pretending to guide us. That's a very significant obstacle. And that is something that we deal with in our teachings and in our school. So practices that help us to develop inner guidance. As I alluded to earlier, the practice of inquiry. It's an important practice, fundamental practice in our school. So simply, it's an open, precise exploration of our experience. And it's similar in a general way to the Socratic method, which was practiced by Socrates in Athens, Greece, around 450 to 400 BC. Long time ago. His methods of questioning were written down by his most famous student, Plato, which is how we get to know about it today. We know that method. Now, our method of inquiry we call diamond inquiry. And it is an open, precise exploration of our experience. But it is also a dynamic engagement with whatever's there. So diamond inquiry is an operation of intelligence, inner intelligence, that uses awareness, knowing, clarity, feeling, memory, reason, just to name a few. And all of these things that I mentioned, all of these faculties help us to experience in prompts clarity and unfolding when used within diamond inquiry. So it's a manifestation of the creative dynamism of our being. So diamond inquiry invites new knowledge, and the knowledge will develop and reveal the possibilities inherent in ourselves and in our being. So with this practice, insight shows up. It shows up as an unfolding knowingness. The insight shows up as a direct perception. You know it by being it. You come into it, the unfolding knowingness. The unfolding creates a deepening. We're able to go deeper naturally. And the deepening allows for more understanding. And the understanding, which came out of the deepening, creates more availability for insight, which in turn leads to more unfolding. So it's like a virtuous process. Insight, unfolding, deepening, understanding. It is simple in some ways, and the barriers and obstacles can be difficult. But in a very simple way, it's like the moment you learn to ride the bike. when I taught my granddaughter to ride the bike, she would declare to everyone within earshot that she could ride her bike, which I mentioned. It was wonderful to be around. And there was a problem with braking, hadn't quite figured that out. So in the moment, sort of as a fill-in, the bushes along the sidewalk worked pretty well for braking. So, yeah. But in this process, and I'm using this because in the bike riding example, there was a direct insight. It was both a visceral and intellectual knowing and an understanding in that moment. I'm doing this. I know how to do this. Somehow it's there for me. I'm up. I'm pedaling. I'm staying up. I'm riding the bike myself. I didn't know I could do this. I'm doing it. I know how to do it. I understand how to stay up. And the deepening can show up in, oh my, how do I turn the bike without falling over? And we discover, yeah, things are pretty wobbly. The turning creates numerous tip overs. Or how do I brake? How do I stop? So the process of insight, understanding, deepening creates an inner advancement. We develop confidence and interest and curiosity, all things that are important for living our lives. So how does the knowingness come to unfold? Well, the obvious answer is through inquiry. So not in an example of a bike, we do inquiry into what's there in the moment. We go into what is there in the moment. So maybe we were at work and somebody said something, or there was a confrontation with a colleague, and you left feeling hurt or sad from that something. That would be something you could inquire into, especially if you're able to see, this happens pretty frequently. I think there's a pattern here. And it's not just this single person at work. I noticed that it is something familiar to me. So that would be a place that inquiry would prove very useful. So things that are difficult, things that are hard, things that are hurtful is definitely something that we deal with. And as you can imagine, the inner critic shows up in those types of things. But insight can show up in other unexpected ways. I think a good one is insight of beauty. Things that you never really gave a second thought to. Or you noticed when you were a child or a young adult, or even a middle-aged adult, there were things that you didn't seem to notice, yet at some point you see something that you've seen many times, and all of a sudden it feels like you're seeing it for the very first time. The very first time. It's a beauty that apparently was always there, but you hadn't seen it. It has charm. It has subtlety. It has an intimate preciousness, almost sublime. How does this happen? Well, over the process of time, things like that happen with inquiry. Is obfuscations get removed. Insight happens. So everything becomes far more available. It's far easier to see, and as a result, it's far easier to act. from a level of inner truth. So within our school, I mentioned earlier that there's meditation. Of course, there's what I've just covered is the diamond inquiry. But also as part of the work that we do, there's this love of the truth. We call it love of the truth. And it comes out of enjoying inquiry, not because we're trying to get somewhere, though certainly it's not unusual where people use inquiry to try to get somewhere. But at its depth, the aim of the inquiry is not to arrive at a conclusion, but it is to enjoy the exploration and the discovery. And that discovery is the unfolding of the soul, the unfolding of the soul's truth, the unfolding of the soul's reality, the unfolding of the soul's beauty, innocence, permeability. These are the things that unfolding mean. So these are some of the tools and techniques that we use to help us find our way home to our own inner, deepest nature, our true nature. So another part of our school has to do with when there's been a teaching like this, which is on inner and outer guidance, and we do an exercise to probe into it, to see if we can understand more about it, to take time to look more deeply in an active way. So we're going to do what we call an exercise. And I know some of the faces out there, but for those where this is fresh information, there's different types of exercises that we do after a teaching. And today we're going to do what's called a monologue. And the monologue will be for 10 minutes in a group of 3. Now, if you don't want to join a group of 3, you can do the exercise, which we'll put in the chat, on your own through journaling. And you're welcome to come back here and hear the Q and C part, that means questions and comments, part of the teaching. So the monologue done in groups of 3 for 10 minutes each. Which will be posted in the chat. And after each person does their monologue, the 2 people who are really the witnesses, so everyone gets to be a witness twice and a monologuee once. And a monologue is exactly that. It's a monologue by the person to really look into the question, which I'll give you here in a minute. And the point of it is to create a field for deepening. So when you are the witness to another person's monologue, you want to be with that person. You want to listen. You want to be there. It's not a time for looking around, checking your watch like 20 times. So somebody does need to check the time. And you need to adhere to the time. I know there's a tendency when people are feel a little shy, like, oh, they're just in a very important part. Yeah, that happens sometimes, but it shouldn't go on for more than a minute. So each person does a monologue and the others really listen, and there's no feedback. You're just holding what's there. You are a witness to what is happening. You're allowing what's happening. So, monologue in groups of 3, 10 minutes. And the questions are, when in your life have you looked for or followed outer guidance? That's one part. You don't have to speak to each of these. You can speak to one or two, or all of them if you think you can. Do you have an experience of something in you that feels like inner guidance? What does it feel like? I'll read those first two over because I think I might have gone a little quick. When in your life have you looked for or followed outer guidance? Do you have an experience of something in you that feels like inner guidance? What does it feel like? Question 3, do you need to trust yourself? Do you tend to trust yourself? Or do you doubt your own knowing? Now, that question might be to a greater or lesser degree. How do you feel about the possibility of finding your own inner teaching, your diamond guidance? What would you need to trust that inner guide more?